showing up is not enough, right? It's monetizing the show up. So often we're like, just go on video or just do this or just do that. I don't care if you're just starting out or you've been doing this for 10 years, the just is not enough. And everyone says to me, I want to be in Forbes, I want to be in Good Morning America. Those things are not driving people to work with anybody anymore. Anybody work with somebody just because they had Forbes on their website, like the logo on the website? No. Then why does everyone say to me, well, if I'm just in Forbes, I can get X? It's not true. It's one of the reasons I stopped having a PR agency and really started teaching how we can use media for us and monetize it. Because if you go to my website, ladies, I have all those logos. They've not made me money. What I've done with them has made me money. And those people that are trying to sell you $500 or $5,000 to be in New York Weekly, which they own, by the way, those are the perpetuating that idea. Yes, Jen, you're fed that. So that's all today is about, is changing the way you're thinking and changing the way you're thinking about what we're doing. Because those of you that have been on podcasts that it was a waste of time, you lost money. Plain and simple. You missed out on sales, and it threatens how your business is working. So many times people will say to me, well, so I was on, somebody said this to me actually yesterday. I was on 45 podcasts this year and I made $50,000. What did you do with those 45 hours differently, right? What's wrong with the way that you're perceiving what you're doing? So the new landscape is now using all of that media to make money for you so that you can have a booked out calendar. That's what I want for everybody, is to have a booked out calendar. And after this conversation, I'm going to make you guys an offer to be in my Fame Lab. And when you go book a call with me, you'll see there's not a lot of spots because my calendar's pretty booked. So if you're interested in working with me as we get through this, keep that in mind as we get to the bottom of the conversation. And I'll tell you all about how it is to work with me in the Fame Lab. I'm going to put the information, if I can, in there right now. So maybe somebody can, maybe Leanna, if you could help me out and just copy and paste that later because my assistant's not here. Thank you. So what happens when your friends show up for your calls? You make them work. I appreciate it. Okay. So if you don't know me, I hope, and I feel like I know most of you guys. My name is Beth Neidig. I'm a former TV producer. And a couple of years ago, I closed my PR firm, my very, very successful money-making PR firm. My husband was so happy when I did that because honestly, it was giving me heart palpitations. I just wasn't making the impact. And my clients were telling me they have great media, but they weren't making any money. And that's when I really started to create the framework, which is the FAME formula. But it all started with the Dr. Oz appearance. I actually got onto the Dr. Oz show early into my career. And at that time, I was food business. I was I was a food blogger that didn't know how to use a camera. So I started going on. It's just, that's the way I knew how to use it. But what happened was, so I went on, I had a great episode, but my business wasn't set up in the back end. When people went to my website after that show, my opt-in was paused. It wasn't working. So anyone that went there, and thousands of people did, I got no emails. But after I stopped crying for a few days, what I really learned from it was that going on anything, getting visibility without strategy, it's just noise. You've all seen those posts. I'm so honored to be featured in Achieve magazine. When I see those, you know what I think? Who cares? It's not about being on it. It's about what you're doing with it. If your post said, hey, I was just in Achieve magazine, I talked about how to leverage podcasting for revenue, then I'm interested. And I want you to start thinking about it that way. How are we talking about our media? How are we being on our media that's all directed to our offers and to our messaging? Because so many times we go on stages or communities and we give our information, but we're not connecting it to what we're actually needing to talk about. And it just doesn't work. So that TV appearance led me into what I do now, is helping you leverage everything you're doing for more podcast appearances, make you money. So that's my big mistake. I would love if anybody would want to share in the chat, or I'd love for everyone to share in the chat. What is the biggest mistake you think you're making on podcasts today? Don't be shy. We're all learning here. And most of your names are Katie anyway. So it's not like your name's going to come up. But what is the biggest mistake you think you're making? Is it you don't have your stories together? You're not connecting it to your offers? Your lighting is bad? Your microphone doesn't work? Felicia says she's not getting enough interviews. That's a problem, right? Jen says she's not connecting it to her offers. Don't talk enough about my business impact, right? What's the value, Christy? Thank you. What's the impact? Not having a cohesive plan. We're going to go over that today. Dr. Kate says a way to monetize it, right? How to go from one to group to giving more people. I don't know. A radio show just came to mind when you said that, Dr. Kate. So we can talk about that. I don't know. I felt it. Bad lighting. Definitely, my lighting's a little off today. No reaching the right decision makers, right? What podcast are you on? What platforms are you on? And are you in front of the right people? That's so important. One of the big questions I get is, well, how do I find the right podcast for my brand? The answer to that is you are on podcasts that are already talking to your ideal client. So one of the first tips, and I hope you guys brought that notebook so you can write notes down, is go back and ask your ideal clients that you're working with now. What podcast are you listening to for my information? Be really specific. So I'll ask, what podcast are you listening to how to leverage media? And they'll tell me everything from Marketing Made Simple to Lewis Howe. Well, Lewis Howe's one of the ones I want to. I've been pitching him for like 3 years. I'll get there. My name's getting bigger. I'll get there. Christina said picking the right visibility to maximize your store. Poor about me story. Why would anyone care what I have to say? Oh yeah, Jen, we worked on that when you were in one of the early situations of the Fame Lab, right? What are you saying and how are you saying it so that people understand who you are and what you're about? And we're going to go through that a little bit today. But first, let's talk about the problem. It sounds like from what you just said, you're getting the exposure, you're not converting, you're landing some interviews, but we're not getting clients. Maybe we feel awkward about just talking about our offers and we just want to talk about everything else but us. We don't talk to the audience, which is a big one, which we'll talk about in a little bit too. Hoping listeners will just find you because you've had this whole conversation and you wait till the last 5 minutes to be like, oh yeah, I have an offer. Please stop doing that too. Let's start in the beginning of the conversation. And you don't use a follow-up or promotional strategy. What kills me and what you will never do again, please raise your hand again. I will never do again, Beth. Thank you, Dr. Kate. What you will never do again is be on something and share it once in your story, because that I think is a kick in the teeth to everybody involved. It's not worth your time. The podcast, you're probably paid for someone to edit that podcast and do the assets and do the graphics. It's not worth it. So I want you to make sure that you never do that again. And when you go to do that, what people tell me is like, Beth, I heard your voice say, don't do that. So DM me next time that happens and I'll be happy to support you on not sharing in your story once. So what we're going to do is by the end of this training is you'll understand the framework called the FAME formula and no more hoping for results and awkward promotion. We are no more about wasting time. I'm a mom. I know some of you are moms too. Like we don't have the time to waste. And like me, I'm paying for college. So maybe some of you are planning on paying for college or paying for other things. It's really important that our businesses are making money with everything we're doing. There's got to be an ROI. And that's one of the things that my clients learn with working with me in the Fame Lab is that we don't just do it to do it. There's got to be a purpose and an understanding and a revenue goal behind it, right? Like if you need 5 more clients, this is what we can do to get 5 more clients. It makes a big difference. Because like I said earlier about the Dr. Oz story, visibility without strategy is a liability. You're actually hurting yourself. Because I'm seeing that you're on, let's say 20 podcasts, but you have 400 people following you on Instagram, there's a disconnect there. There should be you should be getting more people on your social media, more people in your email list, more people in those metrics so that you can give them an offer. As Christina had a question. It's usually 10%, right? Like the 10% of the people that signed up for this call came, 10% of those will book a call, 10% of those will hopefully come into the Fame Lab. So if you're getting 1 client per speaking engagement, everyone give Christina a round of applause. Good for you. That's awesome. Who else would want to get 1 client from every speaking engagement? Yeah, right. Who doesn't want to get 1 client from every speaking engagement? Well, the FAME formula is one of the ways that I help my clients do that. And it's an antidote to the just be everywhere. I am tired of people saying, well, you have to be on all the platforms and all the stages and all that. You really don't. Be where your listeners are and convert the listener into the buyer. And that's what we're going to be focused on today. And I'm going to walk you through what the FAME formula looks like and what we use in the FAME lab so you can convert them for you too. Let me just take a sip of water. Any questions? By blowing your mind yet? You're like, who is this chick? I hope you say that. She's from Jersey and she makes you do the hard thing. See, someone just left. They were like, nope, I'm out. I'd rather that happen, right? I want the people here who's going to understand what we're talking about is important and it's easily transferable into any business. I don't care if you're a photographer like Jen, you're a designer like Leanna, or Bridget's a nutritionist, or Dr. Kate. It doesn't matter what your business is how you're using it to move forward in your business. So let's talk about the FAME formula. First, we talk with mindset. How are we showing up? How are we creating the opportunity for ourselves to get media? Because I'm not teaching you about how to get media. We do go over that in the FAME lab, but I'm teaching you how to create the system in your business so you're consistently getting it. And what that starts with is hitting send, asking your friend, doing those things that are bold and having confidence about them because you are the expert that people need to hear. That's what I want you to understand. Okay, that wasn't for me. And number two is your authority positioning. How are people seeing you? What kind of authority are you? And how are people talking about you when you're not in the room? Right? I don't talk about myself as a publicity expert or a visibility expert. I'm an expert in media. If you want an expert in media supporting you on media strategy, I'm the person for you. So how are you positioning yourself so that you are the go-to person? And I don't mean the go-to person like everybody knows Marie Forleo, right? I mean the go-to person. Hey, I'm friends with Christina. She's amazing for this. I feel like I do that every day. I send my friends other friends, right? But if I don't know what you do, I can't help you do that. So the world needs to know what you're doing. The third is M for FAME, right? Media mastery. How are you telling your stories? What are you telling your stories? What platform are you telling your stories? I actually had a story conversation with a friend yesterday. She's going to be on the social media marketing podcast, which is a huge podcast. And we were working on her origin story and how she was going to talk about what she did differently so that this appearance was going to make a difference in her business. I had another client that was just on that podcast last month. They got 35 DMs from being on that podcast and got some clients from it. So it's really like how you're going to be able to use the media. But the other side of that is how media actually works, right? This idea of like, it's this ethereal out there. They're larger than life. They're bigger. They're not celebrities. They're people that need you because you are the content. If there's no content, there's nothing, right? If there's no guests in the podcast, there's no podcast. And the last one, the one we're going to focus on today, is how to turn your visibility into profit with a revenue strategy. How to really do that so that it makes a difference in your business. Thank you. So let's start with mindset. What I hear from people often, and honestly makes me a little sad, is they're so grateful to be on the podcast. Anyone ever feel like the grateful guest? Yeah. Yes, we're grateful because we want to have gratitude, but you are a valuable asset and you are helping them serve their clients, right? If I'm on a podcast, on like a marketing podcast, my expertise is helping their audience. It's keeping them coming to the podcast. It's keeping them following the podcast host. So I'm not honored to be here. I'm happy to be here to help your audience, and we can both share in that accolade and both share in that audience because you're providing value. Thank you, Christina, because each appearance is a business opportunity. And I'm going to really jam that into you guys today because I want you to really start thinking about it differently. Being a grateful guest is, I'm going to say it, it's a weak position. I want you to be grateful, but I don't want you to be a grateful guest where you're just like, oh my God, thank you so much for having me on. That's great. But also I want you to be a powerhouse and give it to me because it's really different because I write in the next part, like you're invited for a reason. You're on a podcast, you're on a stage, you're on TV, you have that big meeting, and you can use all of the information we use today for any of that stuff. But you can't do any of that if you're trying to be perfect. We have any perfect people in the room? No, nobody's perfect. Bridget's perfect. I'm perfect in some things. Every appearance is a business opportunity, 100%. And I want you to think about the value you offer is the content you're giving and the solution people need. Because we are all the solution to somebody's problem. I'm the solution to your problem about not making money from your podcast interviews. right? We're the solution to people's problems. It's how you talk about being those problem, that solution. That's the difference. And it's, Bridget, sometimes I bet being a perfectionist has helped you. In podcasting, it's not going to help you. So we're going to help you figure that out as well. Because it's 80% mindset. It's really all about like showing up big. To be completely transparent, I'm not feeling great today. I hope you're not feeling that. But like my younger son said to me today, Mom, when that green light goes on, you turn on. And that's what I mean, like having that mindset, no matter what's going on in my life, when I'm here to serve you, and that's what I'm here to do today, I'm going to serve you 100%. And I'm going to have the system, which Katie Fisher has to fix, sometimes works really well. So thinking about your mindset about podcasting and making money from podcasts, I'd love us to do a little chat area again. What's the biggest mindset shift you need to make so that you can make 10K from your next podcast appearance? Tie in your offers, 100%, have offers to tie them into, right? Intentional confidence. Oh, I'm so happy you guys are getting this. Overcoming imposter syndrome, that's a huge one. Oh, Rachel, we are not salesy. We are matter of fact, 100%. That's something I come across a lot too, honestly, Rachel, is like, well, I don't want to feel like I'm like selling. I'm like, listen to any of the podcasts I'm on. I don't sell, ever. I really don't. Oh, somebody said she had to run. Okay. Dr. Kate says, even though I'm saying some things that others are the way I'm saying, yes, 100%. It is. It's the way that Dr. Kate does it. I don't wear the way that Dr. somebody else does it, right? It's the way that you talk about it. And I've seen that in person. So 100% you talk about it differently. So I'm glad that's on your mind. Awesome. Same. Clear value proposition. It's really important. Like, what's your point of view? And that's going to bring us into, thank you for the transition. That's going to bring us into my conversation about Kathy, who's one of my favorite clients. She's actually just finished the cohort with me. She had this imposter syndrome. She was really felt invisible, being over 50, she's a TV lifestyle person as well as does podcasts. She just did one yesterday that went really, really well. But she had this idea that what she was saying wasn't enough. What she was saying wasn't valuable. What she was saying wasn't needed. And until we changed her mindset, she actually now has, those are on the East Coast, she has a New York based news channel. It's called WPIX. She's going to be there on regularly because she pitched herself to be somebody who's going to be on all the time. So with the Fame Lab, we are able to have the container for her to really understand what her issues were and how we can change them with the support of the community, which was it's really transformational when I get to see my clients do this. It's so fun. And that's going to take us to, oh, Christy had to go. Okay. That'll take us to authority positioning. Because I want you to start thinking about what your media identity is. It's not the same as your social media identity or your brand or any of the other kind of stuff. It's what is your media identity so that you become that must book, right? I want you to have people in your DMs. And the way that we talk about it is the power elements. Like, what are the stories you're telling to position yourself that way? Right? So you're not just another guest. So it's the $1 million story hook. So when I start a podcast, I sometimes talk about Dr. Oz, or I talk about another celebrity run-in, because I've worked at The Tonight Show and MTV and everywhere in between. People like to hear that celebrity angle, and I've hooked them. They're listening. Or I'm talking about, did you make 10K from your last podcast appearance? And they're hooked them because they're listening. So what is your hook and what are you listening to? But I want to focus on today is the brand that banks. How can I really feel your brand through your conversation, as well like your branding and all that other stuff, but through your conversation? Let me just check the chat. Okay. So we're going to talk about the brand that banks. What are you about? And I want you to think about these 4 categories. If you were a fashion statement, give me in the chat. If your brand were a fashion statement, what would it be? Mine is obviously sequins. Because if you look at my brand, I'm wearing sequins all over the place. Chanel, Blue Man Group. That's a fashion statement, right? Or what your travel, your cocktail, your car. Somebody else said BMW. That's mine too. Right? What is it about you that they can feel from your conversation? And then what else happens is that there's a correlation between what you're setting up for media and what your social media looks like. And I think once you have your brand for your messaging and what you're talking about in the media, it translates really nicely over to social media. So the images you're using, the way you're talking about things and what you're doing, what is going to be your brand identity so that your brand can make bank. And I love that BB. So that's my thing too. But for me, I use it as a statement, right? My brand brings BMW precision. And what does that make you feel already, right? High end, sleek, reliable, with mint mojito freshness. I hope I feel approachable to you, right? But I'm still at a premium level. I am all about luxury and authenticity, right? Because I like my premium. I call it luxe leisure. I want everything to be at another level, but I won't have to work for it. And that I stay while staying sequence mini dress memorable. I'm fun, I'm bold, I'm high value, I stand out. What are you creating for yourself in the same way so that people can understand who you are deep in the soul of who you are? Not just what it looks like, but like this is really who I am on every level. What I like to drive, what I like to drink, what I like to do, and how I like to be. And yes, it's kitschy with mint mojitos and glamping, but it's really when you listen to my podcast, I want you to understand my podcast interviews. I want you to have this feel as well. Oh, we got a little replays. Like my client, oop, I can't see you. Wait a second. Sorry. My client, Michelle, she was just a business coach focusing on endurance. She wasn't really naming what she was. She wasn't naming who she was working with. As soon as we named her the endurance business coach and really positioned her as somebody who was a leader in that industry, from one appearance, it says here $35,000 and still pouring in. Because people finally understood who she was and what she was about, and really putting together your authority positioning, who you are, what you sound like, what you are. That's what we did together in the Fame Lab. And now she actually just started a podcast this year, and she's the #1 podcast in endurance business coaching. It's a small niche, but she claimed it for herself. And that's the difference, is having the confidence to do that while you can actually make money from your voice. Because I know it's what a lot of us want to do, is be able to do that. But you have to have the availability for people to understand who you are. So let's get to the fun part, the media mastery. And I wanted to do this exercise because I want you to start thinking about how you're framing your conversations, because that's the media mastery part of it. How are you mastering using the media for yourself? So this is the high ticket conversion framework that we talk about in the Fame Lab. #1 is story, strategy, solution. 2 we call pop, and 3 we call star. Just from this, I'd love to in the chat you tell me which one are you interested in, 1, 2, or 3. A little market research. What comes off for you to how you feel like it's best to structure your stories? Because if you're just telling stories, that's great, but I want you to think about the strategy behind telling your story. Awesome, Jen, we got #2. Awesome, I appreciate it. And if you're a little confused, or I'm glad pop is usually the one that we go with. So let's do a little exercise. Let's create your own pop. So problem, opportunity, proof, or punch. I love everyone to give me in the chat, write it up for yourself. My clients are struggling with X. I discovered there was a way to X. Now they're able to X. And on the bottom, you have mine as well. I think I can do this. Put it into the chat. Oh, no, it doesn't work. I thought I could take it from there. But what are they struggling with? What did you discover there's a way to fix? And how are they able to fix it? I'm going to give you guys a few minutes. If anyone wants to do it live, we can have a conversation about it as well. Who's brave and wants to kind of just walk through this? Monica, go ahead. Unmute.
Hi.
How are you?
So my clients were struggling with overwhelm.
Okay.
Opportunity. I discovered there was a way to basically support them on delegating their to-dos. Punch, now they're able to focus on the things in their business that only they can do, or, the bigger picture.
Okay, so let's start at the beginning. My clients are struggling with give me like a really specific, what is overwhelm? Like, what are they overwhelmed with? Or like, what's that? Give it to me granular, right? You're giving it to me high level. Give me
Okay,
really like a piece of it.
the day-to-day of running a business.
Awesome. So can we get that makes more sense to me. Everybody else? Can we get a little nod? Yeah. So my clients are struggling with how to say it. Go ahead.
The day-to-day of running a business.
Okay. So I discovered there was a way to,
Help them delegate those items.
is that like your number one thing you do for your clients is help them teach them how to delegate?
I I provide them with somebody who they can delegate to.
Oh, so I created a way for them to take that off their plate. Like so what did you create? You could change the name, right? Because you didn't discover a way, like I discovered the fame formula, but you created a way for them to what?
Well, I provide virtual assistant services,
Yeah.
so I I provide them with somebody who will take those things off their plate.
Okay. So I created a virtual assistant agency, and now they're able to get everything they need done and make 10x the revenue.
Right.
So I was just trying, I appreciate, Monica knows me, I appreciate you letting me push you a little bit. But that's what I mean. Like, I want you to be really granular. And if you were to say that on a podcast versus the overwhelm and I take it off their plate, you're not naming what you do. Right. Because like, if you look at my example, I systemized the podcast monetization. Right. So what's really specific, what did you do that makes a difference in their business? And now they're able to do something else. So that when I'm listening to you, I'm like, oh my God, I have to go figure out what Ninjas is because I need a VA. If you're just talking about overwhelm, I might not put that together, even though I'm listening. And that's what I mean by really having these stories in your pocket with really specifics and really understanding how to connect your offers to them so that you can generate the money you want. That makes sense, Monica? Awesome. And anybody else struggling with it? We kind of understand. Let's see in the chat. Christina said, my clients are struggling with taxes. I provide tax strategies, so now they're able to save lots of money. So Christina, give me a little bit more about what tax strategies actually means, because I don't know what that means. Let's say.
Oh, hi. Okay.
Hi, hon.
So, one of the things that I came up with, which I'm trying to trademark, I will be, it's tax hacks, hacks to lower taxes.
Awesome.
So,
So
so I'm
just saying I provide tax hacks so that you can
okay.
have lower taxes and you can save lots of money. Awesome. Right. So
Perfect.
well, we tend to have this very like high level conversation all the time. I don't want you guys to have it anymore. I really want it to be really, really specific. Well, let's finish with Jen. My clients are struggling with confidence in midlife. I discovered there's a way to help them level up their image and mindset in simple ways that feel authentic and purposeful. Now they're able to make choices based on their desires, fire their inner voice, and make self-centered decisions to pursue their pursuit in their second half. Where is Jen on camera? Jen, I love that. We just need to make it smaller. We need to like just pick one. Yeah, I would just pick one. So what is confidence in middle life? So my clients struggle with feeling invisible. I discovered there's a way to help them by up leveling their image and mindset. Now they're able to follow their desires and find their purpose.
Got it.
So I just make it really specific. But I think depending on what podcast you're on is how you use that. And you intermet invisible, losing purpose, divorce. There's so many divorce stages now. Oh my God. Maybe we'll talk about that. So I appreciate that. Thanks, Jen. So I hope from this exercise that you're really understanding it's really being very specific, but also connecting it to your offer. Because Jen has an offer, I'm making it up, Jen, about feeling invisible, right? So later in the conversation, she's going to talk about her feeling invisible masterclass or whatever it is. So in that way, whoever said salesy before, that way it doesn't feel salesy. It feels like you're giving me more information because you want to give me value rather than, well, you can go download my opt-in and you can get my funnel. No, when I teach my feeling invisible over 50 class, oh, Jen has a feeling invisible over 50 class. Oh my God, I need to hear that. Do you guys see the difference in that? Just that conversation? That's the way I want you to start thinking about being on podcast interviews. Because Jessica, one of my clients in the Fame Lab, 100% did that. We changed the narrative. She's finance space and finance space is boring. We don't talk about it being boring anymore, right, Christina? You're not talking about boring taxes, even though people might think they're boring. But we really changed how we positioned her and owning what she was saying and being specific about it. She's raised her prices. She's got more books out there now. I think she's got a TV show going on now because it's all about showing up and turning those appearances into assets and not just having them be appearances. So we're going to move on to the expert monetization piece. This is my favorite piece because this is a piece that no one does and it blows your mind. What are you doing around the actual podcast or the actual interview so that people know that it's happening? You're putting it out there. People can see you're at a different level, your credibility, all the reasons why. Because I want you to go look at my social media or be in my emails and be like, Beth is everywhere. She's on this stage. She's on this podcast. She's doing this TV thing. Like having a promotional strategy around your publicity and not just your offers. That's where people stop, right? Like you've seen all the publicity about coming to the class, right? That's what most people stop at. Now I want you to also include in your promotional calendar and the things that you're doing, how you're going to promote the stages you're on and the podcast you're on, anything that you're doing. I have a podcast coming up next week that I talked about 2 weeks ago when I booked it. I don't wait till I'm on it. I talk about it beforehand. So let's talk about the before. What we don't do normally is we don't tell our audience what's happening. I told my audience last month that I'm going to be on a stage in February. We're already selling tickets. So the time crunch doesn't really matter. It's just telling your audience, teasing them. Hey, I'm going to be on this stage. Hey, I'm going to be on this stage. Do you remember when I told you I'm going to be in person on somebody's big podcast in Newport, California? Right? You were like, oh, whose podcast are you going to be on? That's teasing you. And it's a big one. Wait till I'm so excited. I can't tell you yet. But it's a big one, right? So in building that anticipation and then letting people see what you're doing during the podcast. I often go live on Instagram in the middle of a podcast interview. Because why not? It's good for everybody involved and let your audience be a part of what's going on. I was on a podcast that actually taped at iHeartRadio in the city. And I went live from being in there. I was Andy Cohen's, Watch What Happens live studio, and I got to do all this fun stuff. And then after the podcast, after the episode's over, I went back on live and told everybody what I did, and then I did an email about it. So I want you to start thinking about how you're talking to your people while you're doing it. Just like you would be like, if you would call your partner or call your friend, like, oh my God, I'm here. I want you to start telling your audience. Because the stories you're telling aren't just experiences, they're the value you offer your audience. And I want you to hear that, right? You've done all the work. You're an authority already. You're a powerhouse. But how you're going to tell people about it, that's the methodology that I bring to the table so that you can be the solution for their problem. I really want you to feel like the solution for everyone's problem. And then the pipeline. So often I'll say to a podcast host, hey, let's go live on your Instagram the morning of a podcast interview. And they're like, really? Why? Like, because you're going to have the most downloaded episode because I'm going to be on it, because I'm going to promote it differently than everyone else does. And if you're in the Fame Lab and work with me, you promote it differently because you understand this is a business tool that we're creating an opportunity for publicity, right? We're going to put it in our newsletters. So often it gets buried at the bottom. I don't know why we do that. Be proud of it. I was on this stage, this stage, this stage, this stage, this stage. How is your audience going to feel about you differently if you start telling them about all the things you're doing and not just selling them or talking about your offers or talking about your dog? I was at my friend Ronnie's podcast, right? Like, why not? Like, let's have more of those conversations and let people in. But like I said before, do not post. I'm so honored to be on Beth's podcast. Again, nobody cares. When you're talking about the publicity and you're talking about visibility, nobody actually cares that you're on my podcast. They care about why they should listen. So let's talk about what you talked about on my podcast, why they need to listen. And don't give them all the information, right? You want to tease them. So I'm so honored is no longer part of your vocabulary. You can put it at the end of the post, but I want you to think about how you're using this as a tool. Because my client Heidi did. I'll tell you what Heidi was just in my last cohort as well. And what we did with her, she hadn't done a lot of podcasts. She just started doing some podcast interviews because we had her stories upright and correct. We knew what she was offering. So what we did is we took the last 3 podcasts that she did. We got a list of the last 10 people she spoke to but didn't buy her product and sent them an email. The email said something like, hey, Leanna, I was thinking about you because I was just on this podcast interview and I talked about X, Y, and Z. I think you might really like it. Let me know what you think. Very, right? Just kind of cash, very personal. She booked 3 sales calls. And the last time I spoke to her, she'd already booked, it's supposed to be $14,000. She's $14,000 from that single podcast email and from that single appearance. So imagine if you had something to go back to your people in and had that plan, because we're doing that all the time. And it's not to the whole list, it's the people that we've spoken to. Okay, I know I've talked a lot, and I didn't look at my notes once. So let me just look at my notes to see where I am to make sure I'm giving you everything that I want to give you. Okay, awesome. So now I've given you lots of strategy. I've given you the framework. I'd love to see what's sticking with you. So one thing we talked about, can you implement in the next 48 hours? Give me one thing in the chat while I look at it. Going live during a pod. Oh my God, I can't wait. Tag me and I will share everything you guys do. Awesome. Share and follow up, media brand. Rachel, you were nodding a lot during that one. I'm glad that one really resonated with you. Write a new thingy. Yes, Jen, definitely write a new thingy. Anybody else? And take a drink while you guys are thinking. I love the pop. That's one that works the best for me. I'm glad that you guys picked. That was a little market research while we were doing that. But the pop is definitely understanding who you are and the opportunity to sell without selling. Leanna, like pop too. Rachel, I'm so honored. We're not honored, right? We're a valuable expert, not a grateful guest, right? Nutritionists are, right? For you, Bridget, like this time of year, we're getting into the new you kind of stuff. You got 6 weeks to like get everybody on board. I appreciate that so much. I just saw something today. What not to eat during the holidays so you don't gain the 10 pounds. It was good clickbait. And that's one of the things I really like too. So I love all of these, what do we call them? I would call them statements, right? So you've made this promise, the powerful promise to yourself. But now I'm going to tell you that how you can seriously turn that into income. And I think you guys are ready for it. Oh, I had a slide, I forgot. Declare it now in the chat. Anybody not declare it? I know there's people that are not on camera. Want to give everyone any more seconds? She's ready. Now what? So now what? I'd love to tell you more about the Fame Lab. So this is about not leaving money on the table. And I don't want you to be like, Beth, this is another program a course or one of those programs that everyone's offering. It's really not. The way that I do my programs differently is that my brain is in your business for the duration of the time we're together. I'm really diving into your personal brand so we can make it media ready, creating the stories with you and going through the process of the Fame Lab so that you can have the business that you want. I call it a mentorship mastermind because I'm bringing together a small group of women that you can actually connect with. I love, Jen can attest to this. I love the last couple of sessions that we have together because we always cry, right? Because we've really created this community of people to help each other and support each other. And that just makes me feel like I'm making a difference in people's businesses besides the things that I'm doing for their business. And something I'm premiering today, which I haven't even told my husband or anybody else, is I'm actually going to make this a 12-month program, but you're only going to pay for 6. So this is how it's going to work. We're going to have 6 months. We're going to meet and we're going to work together. I'm going to teach you. We're going to have homework. You're going to do all the stuff. And then after the first 6 months, I'm done teaching you. Now we're going to implement, but I'm still going to meet with you as a group to support that implementation. So we're actually moving into a 12-month program, but only paying for 6 months because I feel like after the program is over, I still get questions from my clients and I want to be able to support you and serve you and give you the value for the whole thing. We also have a Slack channel and we create a customized podcast monetization form. And what you get is all the strategies, all the methods, all the stuff we've been talking today and the hands-on coaching. one of the things I hear from my clients most when we start is like, can you just look at this, right? I want to look at your pitches. I want to look at your stories. I want to look at all the things you're doing so that we can create your own fame formula within your business. And we're all going to do this within 20 to 30 minutes, 3 times a week. I'm going to repeat that because people don't believe me. An hour and a half a week is all you need to have consistent media in your business and to leverage it so that you can have more clients. You can book out your call, book out your calendar and sell whatever you want to sell. But it's not for everybody, right? If you want to just like get rich quick, you don't want to show up, you don't want to do the work. I think you know me well enough. I'm going to make you do the work, right? There's homework every time. I keep you accountable because I want us all to move together, but you need to want to be in the spotlight. If you're like, Beth, I can't go on camera, then let's have a different conversation and I can support you on getting to that because the Fame Lab is for people who are ready to go. And I only have 8 spots left. Like I said, I only take 10 people. 2 people signed up before the class who I've never worked with before because that they know that I'm their person because they've been listening to me on podcasts. Oh, it's also for you, not for you if you want to get famous. That's like, we're not about getting famous, we're about getting paid. And the people that do well in the program have something to say. I don't care if you have a 6-figure business or a 3-figure business. You need to have something to say. You're ready to be that authority. You're ready to make those 10K days. And you're ready to be committed to taking action all the time, right? All the time. What does that mean? 3 times a week for 10 to 30 minutes. For 20 to 30 minutes. That's the kind of commitment that I need from you and the time that we spend together. These are some of the people who have worked in the Fame Lab. Jen, I don't know if any of your comments are here, but I just got a really great comment from Michelle Garside. I did a call for her recently, and she sent me this note right afterwards about changing her perspective. She just got a book deal. She's on stages all the time. She called me recently that she's doing things differently and seeing different results. She's actually amazing. Jen said, I should be in there. I've gotten so much since working with you. Yeah, Jen, send me a testimonial. I'll put it in there. And the program is $6,000. It's $997 a month for 6 months. So again, you're only paying for the first 6 months. You get the next 6 months in the back end free. And then you get all the bonuses. You get the turn every interview into a revenue machine, which is my scripts. You get the Rockstar Media Kit. You get the storytelling. You get the how to make 10K for your next podcast appearance, which is a correspondence to the checklist, which is my lead magnet right now. I'm also giving, this is new, it hasn't even come out yet, it's done. I should have Leanna look at it. It's the No BS Guide to Conquering the Small Screen. So if you want to have your own TV show or create your own YouTube channel, this is a comprehensive 150-page guide on how to do that. And then this is the extra 6 months. So keeping you accountable, strategy sessions, all the things that we're doing in the program. But you don't need to learn from me anymore. You need to do it and be in practice and have me there to help you with the questions that you need that come up. Can we practice this? Can you look at this? How does this sound? The thing that I hear the most from people is they just want me to their eyes on their business. And now instead of 6 months, we're doing 12. So if you're interested in booking a call and talking more about what your call would be like, what your program would be like. So on the call, what we're going to do is review what you're currently doing for visibility. I don't care if it's nothing. You are doing something. You're showing up on social media at least. We're going to identify your biggest revenue opportunity, map out your monetization plan, and then determine if the Fame Lab is right for you. I don't have everybody in the Fame Lab. I'm really picky about it. But honestly, I think I know most of the people on the call. So if you're on the call and you're interested, please book a call with me so we can talk about your specific brand. So if you're ready to sign up for a call on the green, sorry, and the orange is the call, and in the blue, if you're like, Beth, I'm in, I'm ready, you can go right now to the sales page, get all the information and sign up today. Thank you so much for listening. I would love to start answering questions. Please unmute, ask any questions about the program or about the stuff that we talked about today. I'm gonna take a drink while you do that. Go ahead, Bridget.
No, I was just clapping.
Oh.
This was so helpful and so informative. I could listen to you talk forever. So
Oh,
thank
I
you.
appreciate it. Thank you so much for coming. It's really, this is what I feel like I've been working towards this for the last 20 years, to be honest. You know, I was a TV producer and all that stuff. And this is the stuff that I would do for people when they came on the shows or when I was prepping them for their appearances on the talk show. So I worked at the Tonight Show, and I also worked at a show that was on Fox News before it was the Fox News of today. It was just a news channel back then. So I had to make that caveat. But I would prep the guests and do pre-interviews, and this is the work that I did with them. So it's really what I've really honed over the last 20 years to now be able to help people like us in the digital space move through it and actually make money from it. So no questions about your brands or about the Fame Lab, about anything else? Go ahead, Ronnie. She's just gotta unmute. Or you can put it in the chat and I'll answer your question there.
I just couldn't see my unmute button because
No
I had
problem.
another message. I never accepted the recording, so that was covering my mute button.
Oh, no problem.
Yeah, so what I love is I feel like one of the hardest things is to niche down to that powerful statement of how I'm going to help people, because I work with female leaders and entrepreneurs, and there's so much to it, you know, how you add value. And yeah, so I don't know if you want to like work on that value proposition right now, again, like how you were doing it, but you know, I think I was trying to get to the heart of it. I think people, they need to build their confidence, but it's about, they want to make more money. They want to have more visibility within either corporations or even as entrepreneurs online, which is what you're doing,
Right.
getting people more visibility. But I work at it, and I think I come at it mostly from a lot from mindset. We combine mindset and business strategies. And
Okay.
so there's so many things there. I'm like, what is the moneymaker? I don't know. I know
Well,
that's what you're probably doing
yeah,
in your program, but
I do
yeah.
that in the program also, but I want to give you this. I want you to stop thinking about the one thing, and I want you to start testing the one thing. Just
Okay.
one. Like just try mindset, but you need to try it for like 6 weeks
Mm-hmm.
and really create the messaging around that, and then see what people are doing. You know, when I use the word thought leader, I get more of a certain type of entrepreneur than if I use business owner in my messaging. And I've had to test that. I think if we get the messaging, like pick the one thing and that's what it is forever. I think that's a mistake. You have to test it. Ask your favorite clients on your next sales call. Ask them what made them book the call, and not only what's going on with them, but what they saw so that they knew you were the right person. And then I think you'll have your answer.
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, I actually teach thought leadership. There's so many alignments there. And that's what people want to be. I mean, I have a mastermind myself that just is starting this week. It's Leadership Academy Mastermind, and one of the pillars of it is thought leadership.
Right.
So,
Okay,
yeah.
so I also want to commend you, Ronnie, for just mentioning your mastermind, because now everyone in the room knows you have a mastermind and knows what the title is. And if they're interested in it, then hopefully they'll go find you. But I want to like, that's the kind of stuff that I'm talking about that we don't all do. So thank you for doing that as well.
Okay, you're welcome.
And awesome, and congratulations. Oh yeah,
Thanks.
a lot of the work that we do in it is really figuring out what that messaging is going to be. And being on podcast is that testing ground. Seeing what works, seeing what what's the right word? What titles work, what stories work. It all changes throughout the year, and that's how we test it and we go through it till what I've done is now I know the 6 stories that I tell over and over and over again. Anybody else have a question? No, we have 1 more minute on our clock, but I wanted to make sure that everyone feels like
Beth,
it.
I have a question.
Go ahead, babe.
Okay, so this might not be relevant for a lot of people, but I have my own podcast, and would something like this even just be helpful for me as an interviewer as well? Like how to I don't want to say lead people, but also like understanding what kind of information I can pull from them.
100%, because I want you to, as a podcast owner, I want you also doing all the things that we're talking about, right? You're not there to just highlight the grateful guest. Yes, you're bringing them on as a valued expert, but your expertise is just as valuable. So a lot of times when people interview, they're just asking question after question after question.
Right.
What I would love you to do instead is ask a question, get an answer, and then talk about how it pertains to you and talk about that story there. And that makes a big difference in how your audience is going to be even more in on you. They're grateful that you brought that person on, the expert, but now they know you a little bit more and they can connect to you a bit more just by having that conversation with yourself too.
Cool. Thanks.
You're welcome. Welcome. I put the links in the chat. So please book a call if you have any questions about anything we talked about today or questions about the Fame Lab. Let me just make sure I said everything. I gave you all the information. I just gotta say, like, don't leave another 10K on the table the next time you have an appearance. And if you do, think of me. And next time you can come into the Fame Lab. I appreciate you guys so much. Thank you so much. I hope I see you on my calendar, and I will talk to you soon. You'll get an email with the wrap up and all the other stuff that you get for that. I will be sending out several emails with some more information about everything we talked about, because I'm honestly, just to let you guys know, and I'm always transparent in my business operations, I'm not offering the Fame Lab to my list. I'm only offering it to people who came to the podcast, to the promo, to this. And the people that signed up for it, they're getting different things. Because I think if you made the commitment to be here for an hour and a half, you're a different level, and I want to give you different value. So I appreciate each and every one of you coming on today. Thank you for my friends that were here as well, and my old clients. I love doing this. As always, if you have any questions after this, don't hesitate to DM me on Instagram. I answer my own DMs on Instagram, and I hope you have a really great day. Thanks, everybody.